Welcome back, class. Today is all about proving triangles congruent. In the last section, we talked about proving triangles congruent by showing all of their corresponding angles were the same and all their corresponding sides were the same. And now we're going to talk about alternatives that are going to save us some time and allow us to complete proofs and calculate things a little bit quicker. There are going to be four that we're going to be focused on today, and I've listed the first two here for you. The first one is side, side, side. That's what the S's here stand for. So I'll write this out. Side, side, side. And what that means is if you can show every set of sides is equal to each other, then automatically we'd know that these triangles are congruent. And if I gave you measurements, that might look something like this. Maybe the side's 4 and 4, 5 and 5, and maybe this side is 8. Okay. So here would be two congruent triangles because every side is matching another side. The next one is side angle side, and this one is when you have two sides that are congruent, but then in between those two sides is a matching angle. So in this case we have this left side here matches, then we have this side here matches with the marks, and then in between those two sides are the matching angles. And they don't always have to be right angles, that's just this particular example. I could have something that looks like this, where maybe I have that angle and those two sides, and then maybe even rotate it around. I've got this angle and those two sides. So notice that every side has a match and every angle has a match. So these would be congruent by side angle side. My suggestion when you're doing proofs using triangles is to mark as much information as you can at the beginning, because this is going to help you determine which method you're going to use to prove triangles are congruent. So we want to know if we're going to be proving these triangles congruent by side, side, side or side angle side. So let's mark what we know is given to us. They tell you H is the midpoint of GT, and HR is equal to IH. So because HR is equal to IH, I'm going to mark those with a dash. And then if I know H is the midpoint of GT, then that tells me these two segments are going to be the same. Okay, and then the only other thing we can mark in this picture, because we don't know anything about the other sides, the only thing that we can mark is that this angle is going to be equal to this one because they are vertical angles. So now that I've got my picture marked with everything I know is true, I have determined that I can use side angle side to prove the triangles are congruent. So when I set up my two-column proof, in the end I'm going to have to end with side angle side. So markings on your pictures will be very handy, and this is going to guide you through your steps. So let's go ahead and fill out this two-column proof. We know we have to start with the given. Hopefully that's familiar to you. It says H is the midpoint of GT, and that HR is equal to IH. So they already told us that HR and IH were the same, so this is one of the two sides we've needed. So we've already talked about one side. In our picture we marked that another pair of sides were equal. We marked GH and HT, so we need to talk about that in step 2. So we'd say that GH is congruent to TH, and the reason is because of the midpoint. So definition of midpoint, that should be familiar from previous sections. And then in step 3 we can talk about the angles that we marked. So we can say that angle IHG is congruent to angle RHT because they were vertical angles. And now we've talked about every single side and angle. We had this side at the beginning, so here was a side. We talked about this side here, and then lastly we talked about the angle in the middle, so side angle side. So in step 4, our final step, we can say that the triangle GHI is congruent to triangle THR, and the reason is because of side angle side. This is really much shorter than the previous section where we had to show every angle was the same, every side was the same. So you had multiple steps. Now we can prove 3 things are the same and then be done. Okay? So if you have any questions about this proof, let me know. You'll see more of these in your practice.